Thus far, in reading the Pyramids of Montauk, the number one most impressive, the most standout experience thus far in my mind has been synchronicity, the overwhelming reference to synchronicity within the narrative itself of the story of the book, The Pyramids of Montauk. And I mention that only because as the book catalogs and reveals synchronicity through the various facets of sharing and researching the events and the story of Montauk, the Pyramids of Montauk, and all that that involves on all the many dimensions, synchronicity. And I have to share with you, the viewer, my esteemed viewer, that synchronicity has begun to manifest in my own experience as I'm delving into deeper and sharing and reading the Pyramids of Montauk. The amount of synchronicity is uncanny. And although it's reassuring because I feel enveloped in this source reassurance, it's an example of being caught up in the mystery as the mystery unfolds, and a reminder that the mystery is what life is, and synchronicity is merely the one facet of that mystery that shines forth and lets us all know that we are indeed caught up in a divine experience. We are divine entities, divine fractals of source energy, experiencing third dimensional reality in this human genetic vehicle. So that being said, I'm going to pick up back with the narrative of A New Order of the Ages narrative in the book, and we're in that part of the book where it's discussing the secret societies, the mystery schools, and how the mystery schools and the secret societies have been, from their very conception, the true power behind everything that manifests in the outward world and in this 3D world, politics, everything. The narrative is all comes down to these mystery schools, these secret societies, and that's what the narrative is all about. And it's synchronous. It's just one example of synchronicity. And if you're not familiar with that term, probably the most easily accessed definition, and I think probably even the person who originated or popularized in modern psychology, is Carl Jung, the great German mythologist. He was many things, Carl Jung. And look up what he has to say about synchronicity. And as we do that, then we're going to continue on with discussing the mystery schools as they come about in a new world of the ages. And so this is where we've gotten to this Albigensian crusade, a Catholic preacher of Orthodox faith named Dominic. So this has been all about the Knights Templars and the Cathars, and basically all of the power moves and among the Vatican and all of the different elements of the Catholic or the Christian faith at that time. So it's a very far-reaching story, and basically this is the secret societies and the mystery schools behind everything. So preachers, friars, order of the friars preachers, more commonly known as the Dominicans. This order was bestowed the task of converting Cathars and other heretics. 12 years after the death of Dominic, Pope Gregory IX placed the Dominicans in charge of the Inquisition. No doubt to the belittlement of Dominic's memory, but as a gentle but wise teacher. So much information about the Knights Templar is speculation, but it is often conjectured that the Cathars had a major influence on this order. The founder of the Knights Templar is said to have been Hughes de Pan, a knight from Champagne, who, along with 8 other knights, instituted this order in 1119 towards the end of Hassan's rule over the assassin. Their initial aim, however suspicious and arduous, was to protect pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem, a city captured by Turkish Muslims in 1076 and established as a Christian kingdom in 1099. At the Council of Troyes in 1129, their statutes were officially drawn up by Bernard of Clairvaux, and their order was labeled the Order of the Poor Knights of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. Saint Bernard advocated the systematic training of the imagination by proposing that imagining the birth, life, and death of Jesus Christ would invoke his spirit to descend upon you. The right brain, the forerunner of the imaginative thought, was well respected by Bernard as it held the key to the Holy Spirit of God. The Knights Templar respected his teachings and incorporated them into their secret rituals. So, but anyway, this is one long narrative regarding all of the infighting between the Vatican, the Knights Templars, the Cathars, and not surprisingly, anytime there is intent of power and the intention being dominant, anything that gets in the way of that intention that involves money, power, wealth, and the perpetuation thereof anything that gets in the way of that intent will soon meet its demise if it's not able to overcome that intention, if not be absorbed by it. But either way, that's what this is, this one long narrative. I mean, this is all involving the Catholic Christian religion. You know, it's just, it's not anything at all to do with what the Christian religion is professed to be about. It's just pure, it's nothing but murder, power play, money. And, you know, let me just pick up back with the narrative. The links between religion, philosophy, mysticism, and magic have been dug up and rediscovered. The real truth lurking in the shadows. It is, as Napoleon Bonaparte said, history is always written by the victor, and we must put our minds together now and assume the church is behind all the debauchery and treachery since the reign of Marduk officially began. The political has nothing to do with the moral. Remember, it is obvious that not only did many of the surviving Cathars migrate to the ranks and files of the Knights Templar, but many esoteric orders, long predating either group, did likewise when assimilating into bigger and better movements. So Jan van Helsing, in his revealing book, Secret Societies and Their Power in the 20th Century, opines that the Templars were originally a benevolent order that wished to serve the teachings of Jesus Christ. Yeah, just, you know, more stories of corruption. Manly P. Hall, now here's a name I recommend. I'm just going to kind of skim through because this whole narrative in this part of the book is it's thick, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's very fascinating and interesting. But I think that anyone who's following along and watching any of these videos or trying to keep up with any of this kind of meandering, you know, presentation, going between pyramids of Montauk, decoding the hive mind, you know, the sun is not ours, a new order of the ages. It's been one long litany, one long detailed example, or, you know, evidence, presentation of evidence to show, you know, just kind of how thick this plot is. And so we have Manly P. Hall is a name that I recognize, a high-level Freemason, until he discovered the true purpose of the secret society he was involved in and left. In his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, Manly Hall discourses on the ancient mystery schools and how they were taken over by greed and avarice. One of the most efficacious priesthoods was known as the Druids, and before the order was corrupted, it resembled the Bacchic and Eleusinian mysteries of Greece and Rome when Marduk took over. More evidence. The secret teaching of all ages. Hall writes, the Druids were initiates of a secret school that existed in their midst. This school, which closely resembled, just more. Here we have Thomas Maurice in his Indian Antiquities, discourses at length on Phoenician, Carthaginian, and Greek expeditions to the British Isles. So yeah, this is all internationally connected. Not a big surprise. Druids were a powerful order. Clearly, they borrowed from numerous traditions. The Archdruid, but other secret societies worth mentioning here, which are connected to the Illuminati, are the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Jesuits, and Opus Dei. Around the turn of the 20th century, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was England's leading occult society, founded more about Kabbalah, Hermeticism, alchemy, Enochian magic of John Dee. Most likely influenced the Thule Society, the German occult group in Munich, which Hitler transformed into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party. Aleister Crowley, the Beast and the wickedest man in the world, got his start in the Order of the Golden Dawn. Crowley would later leave and develop his own society of magic. It's a mention of Crowley, but let me just say this about Aleister Crowley. He was definitely someone who, in part, probably deserved his reputation, but I would not let the negative press steer anyone away from investigating what Crowley's about, because he tells it like it is. And I mean, in fact, here's one example. In Crowley's book, Magic Without Tears, and yes, it's pronounced Crowley. It rhymes with holy. Crowley is brilliant. Crowley deserves his place, definitely, in mention of anything to do with the advancement of human knowledge and self-empowerment, for sure. 100% Crowley deserves it. And I'm going to tell you why. If anything, Crowley's first ever written work and intellectual endeavor was a book on yoga, book 4. So, but beyond that, an example like why I believe Crowley shouldn't be maligned too much, because he talks about the different schools of magic and the different spiritual brotherhoods, which we know they call the White Brotherhood, the school of white magic. And then you have the sort of the in between, but he identifies the Yellow School, which is basically a lot of the very powerful secret societies of China, Asia, all that area, which very powerful people. They've cultivated their chi. But he talks about, so he identifies the white school, and this is not racial. And yellow in this instance is, it ties in, with the stereotype, Asians, yellow skin, whatever, I don't know. But it's more to do with the color of magic, like the color of their spirituality is as a balance keeper. And then Crowley identifies the black school of magic, the brothers of entropy, the brothers of darkness. And he identifies Western civilization as being, by and large, in control, and has been in control of the Black Lodge, the brothers of the black magic. Crowley says this, and Crowley's the one who's been maligned and been said is the wickedest man in the world and all this. Well, it's because Crowley was actually trying to empower people, and he did to a large extent. There's a reason why his lodges, the Ordo Templar Orientalis, are still all throughout, all the world, and still thriving and still producing empowered spiritual individuals. But Crowley identifies in the black magic, the brothers of the Black Lodge, specifically in Magic Without Tears. This is why Crowley's, I find him of value, and I recommend his work, but take him with a grain of salt. But anyway, the Black Brothers of the Dark Lodge, he talks about how their insidious encroachment into public education. And he identified back in the early 1900s, Crowley was talking about how they had gotten their influence into the education systems where it was nothing but a dumbing down process, where they were just creating robots for industrial, workers in an industrial age. So Crowley talks about things like that, and he did it way before anybody else that I've come across. But so Crowley was a good sort, although he was a bastard. Yes, I wouldn't want to go mountain climbing with him. If you know what I'm talking about, you'll laugh, you'll chuckle at that. But anyway, Crowley. So in this document, I think this document, this A New Order of the Ages, is very informative. Some things that it almost seems like it's a different person who's been writing this book with some of the narrative and some of the conclusions to the narrative. But anyway, I think it's valuable to share, and if anything, for people to realize exactly how intricate all of this gaslighting has been. So how appropriate is talking about Christians who live in the world, whatever their state of life or position in society. The work of God was born to help those Christians to understand their life. How appropriate, unfortunately, just like the Society of Jesuits, former members have accused Opus Dei as being a cult, a secret society, and a conspiracy. It has been referred to as a brainwashing cult because of its high pressure recruiting tactics, especially on college campuses, corporal mortification techniques like celibacy seen in the Da Vinci Code, and an extraordinary degree of sensory. Some members say they were encouraged to break off ties with their family. Okay, well, what's new? That's what happens when you join the military. I mean, this is whatever. And so, in children of the serpent are the magi, and upon their inheritance of the earth, set up a series of mystery schools predicated upon genetics and more specifically eugenics in order to suppress technology and knowledge. Okay, more examples of debauchery and insidious behavior. The age of Saturn preceded the age of the sun, the birth of the sun, precipitating the protection of Earth. A play with special effects coupled with elements of a seance is what initiates would find themselves in. This is talking about probably in rituals in this mystery school. The Garden of Eden, Eden compound, a position to live on their own, sex, hunger, and desire conjugated with the Sabbath. As this state of perception enveloped the animals upon their evolvement and later the human evolvement, we can see that Satan, the Dark Lord, is the very agent of materialism and was identified with Saturn in Greek and Roman mythology. In the Roman tradition, Venus is associated with Lucifer, but as a necessary evil, so humanity could evolve past the vegetable state. And see Lucifer, I mean, this is all great narrative, but I think without trying to become confused with, is Satan good? Is Lucifer good? Who is Marduk? Who's in charge? What's going on? Is really empower yourself. Learn how to empower yourself. Learn how to be in control of your emotions. Learn how to be in control of your reality. And if you don't see that this is what you're up against, if you think just turning on the news and being a consumer of information, being inundated with narratives that you just accept, well, you're going to be a victim. And so, if anything, all of this information should impress upon you, the esteemed viewer, to step it up a little bit, to be a little bit more discerning, be a discriminate consumer of what you allow to pass through your filters, if you have filters. I mean, it's not all about Democrat, Republican these days. It's not all about this versus that. It's about you empowering yourself and taking care of your family. I mean, if you don't see that children have been targeted and this depopulation agenda is very real. So as warring factions competed for territory, food, and mating rights, the human condition formed as a mind rejoicing and forcing an other to submit to one's authority. See, that's what it's all about. The euphoria of being dominant over another human being sunk the vibrations of the planet into the lowest levels glimpsed yet so far. After this occurrence, the age of demigods and heroes commenced. Full-scale conflicts resulted between humans and armies of other creatures, like centaurs, humans with wings. Wow, the demigods like Hercules. This must be back in the days of Atlantis, talking about. So in story of Jason's quest for the golden fleece, as well as the labors of Hercules. Personify the movement of the sun through the signs of the zodiac. A snake protects the fleece, and Jason must wrest it away. It should be no question to the reader now why a snake is in this place. So we go on talking more, and yes, I want to get into something that's a little transition from etheric matter to solid matter was embodied in the Sphinx. What walks on 4 legs and 2 legs and 3 legs? The answer was the progression of man from birth. First, you crawl on 4 limbs, then in adolescence, you walk on 2 legs, and finally, in old age, you require a walking stick to aid you. And perhaps the most important teaching of the ancient mystic schools concerned the way the spirit worlds are experienced after death. On death, the Eleusinian mysteries, an Orthodox doctrine instills a simplified theory of manifestation. God, Adam, Eve, Lucifer. Names, lots of names. Cool. So everybody's got some kind of narrative and got some kind of gimmick, some kind of angle. But what does that do for us is where we're at these days, you know? What is today called out-of-body experiences is a glimpse in a quote from the orator Aristides, who proclaimed, "I thought I felt the God draw near, and I touched him. I was somewhere between waking and sleeping. My spirit was so light." If anything, folks, don't be thinking that inner growth, spirituality, and developing your own powers is somehow evil. That somehow magic and studies of magic and studies of things like clairvoyance or astral, lucid dreaming. You know, if you're in a church and your preacher's telling you that you're going to go to hell because you investigate things like that, you're in a control mechanism, is what you are. You're in a control outfit. That's what you're involved in. It's not church is synonymous with just control you and you conform to what they say is right and wrong. Well, no, you're a victim, is what you are at that point. So one prophetic element did exist. And I mean, here's talking about New Age terminology, blah, 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 New Age, white light, all this. I mean, here's what happened with all that. It's great, and everybody, they believe they're working, they're working on themselves, and they're increasing their own spirituality and light quotients, and but they're still disempowering themselves because they believe they couldn't, just because somebody had the right catchwords, like a politician or something, and they handed all their power over to politicians, believing that they would. Well, the ones who have been in power, are the very ones that all these atrocities, it's just been perpetuated, and that no one is exempt that's been put forth to us as these saviors or whatnot. But we're in the fourth turning. We're at the end. We're in the Kali Yuga. It's all part of the game, really. That it all breaks down. We as humans, as we've disempowered ourselves and become more on the demonic side of things, we're all just kind of caught up in this energy that is what the Kali Yuga is all about, the fourth turning. And so it's the time where things fall apart, are destroyed. But those who will live through it are those who have learned to self-empower, to take their own spirituality as their own endeavor, their own responsibility. And that's how you survive to the Satyuga, to the golden age, to make it through this fourth turning. So the allegory of the cave, Plato hints at sacred geometry. The prisoners of the cave can only see the shadows, which they interpret as the only reality. That's the digital matrix right there. When one person escapes the cave, he sees the objects in which form the shadows and even the sun itself. He realizes that there are perfect forms, six-dimensional geometry patterns, which act as a blueprints for everything in the material universe. The ancient ritualistic teachings involving the sun god were revealed to the Caesars of Rome. The golden age of Apuleius is one of the great initiated works of the Roman era, early church. Yes, folks, there's a whole very engrossing other reality beyond your smartphone and consuming, what the digital matrix wants you to believe as what is reality. And even beyond that, even our senses, our five senses, this holographic reality and whatnot, that is all still one more layer of the illusion. So, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to try to find a little part here that I feel is like a positive sort of, sharing of information. Shamanism is another interesting practice the church has tried to attenuate. The word comes from the Tungus Mongol noun meaning one who knows. Apparently that's where the term shamanism, that is a spiritual technology of self-empowerment, for sure. Investigating any knowledge about shamanism. It's the original spiritual technology. It is, and it's potent, it's powerful, and it works. Shamanism, the word comes from Tungus, Mongol, now meaning one who knows. Shamans in Attila's life were probably spirit shamans, but this most likely also evoked warriors to practice the shamanic ways of inducing oneself into a trance, states by hyperventilation, frenzied self-mutilation, sensory deprivation, dehydration, and sleep deprivation. Psychoactive plants were also, this fits perfectly with the narratives from initiations in the mystery. Old Hunnic and Mongol hordes that practiced shamanism concluded that the ancient tribes were very interested in reaching higher states of consciousness where they could communicate with spirits and angels. This then descended into animism, totemism, shamanism. Attila and his forces practiced shamanism because it gave them strategic information. But modern shamans practice because it allows them to, that would be more what's known as a war shaman, a battle mage. It's all connected. But modern shamans practice because it allows them to traverse freely through the spirit realms. In the days when the Roman Empire really did decline, it was the result of too massive an empire to defend. Constant invasions from the Germans, Visigoths. Yes, okay. Regardless of capacity for abstract thought has been developing since the days of Pythagoras. Let's see how I can gracefully bow out of this presentation, something that's positive. Amid all the muck of the Anunnaki bloodline Roman oppression after the death of Yeshua, the Renaissance and the age of love and enlightenment was a great sidetrack. Giordano Bruno wrote about multiple dimensions and extraterrestrial civilizations in 1600 Common Era, and so the Pope burned him at the stake. But the Roman Catholic elite would not have the last laugh during this era. Many great Renaissance artists and musicians successfully captured the power of sacred geometry, extraterrestrial influence, and alchemical codes. Alchemy presents a multidimensional awareness, and artists like Da Vinci and Michelangelo captured this essence beautifully. People were also remembering how to love again. The odes of Pindar, Sappho, and Horace paint a picture of love on the canvas of life. In the secret history, overtly sexual themes have perpetuated the dwindling aesthetic light of romantic love. Okay. Sex has been hijacked by the reptilians too, just so you know. That's another way to tie you into the digital matrix through pornography and all that. In the 12th century, Languedoc province were the most civilized regions in Europe. Okay. Come on, brother, help me out here. We want something cool to bow out gracefully with. This amazing information, though. Amazing, and it's all spot on. Yeah, I mean, let's see what we're at here. More prosecute the witch, descent into tyranny, esoteric suppositions which continue to cultivate. What have we got here? Late Middle Ages, Maleficius. The authors of the Malleus Maleficarum were misogynistic as they feared women, and during this time set up Christianity. Yes, all this is all male dominated. They burned witches. Hammer of the Witches was composed by Dominicans. Viewed as immediate threat. Well, it's just a death cult. You know, of course, they're going to, women being the vessel of life, they perverted, you know, sex, and everything, death is glorified where, you know, procreation is not. Alchemy has always been an amalgam of science and spirituality. It was the royal art that so-called fraudulent magicians practiced in ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, and Italy during the Renaissance. A lot of great information. A lot of information. Here's a secret, you know, mystery schools and nobility of the female sex, superiority of women brought him to a level of much contempt. Who is this we're talking about? Europe, studying texts such as the Kabbalah and Corpus Hermeticum and applying these ideas to God and creation. Just as today, the smartest and most well-known literateurs of the ancient world studied and learned the texts of many different religions. This is what caught my eye. Henry Cornelius Agrippa, I'm actually just picked up one of his books on alchemy. Henry Cornelius Agrippa von Nettesheim told authorities that a witch should be spared the fire. He was ridiculed immensely, the basis of which resulted from his applications of Christianity, Kabbalism, and Neoplatonism. He has composed works such as Nobility of the Female Sex and Superiority of Women, brought him to the level of much contempt to the eyes of the church fathers who did not understand Well, yeah, I mean, and that's essentially what men kind of are afraid of women. At least their sexual, a man has an orgasm, maybe two, three if he's feeling pert like a rutting buck. But women can just go on and go on, and that's and it intimidates men. So then you have foot binding, you have this veil that's made to be worn in certain cultures. I'm not going to talk about it. But men do what they can to marginalize the sexual power of women. But we are at this fifth dimension. Terra is bringing back the mother, the goddess energy, the feminine. So you have to get hip. You have to recognize and venerate the female energy, guys. So in his occult philosophy, Agrippa professed that magic is a philosophical science combining physics, mathematics, astrology, and the theology of course. So I'm going to hold up there. I think, I just kind of ran through a bunch of pages, and I like this document a lot. And I wanted to kind of thread together the two narratives of the Pyramid of Montauk, which I find I have to continue reading that and sharing that because it's the examples and the occurrences of synchronicity. It's just wow, it's exhilarating because it's just I don't want to share, it's just they're too personal. But the examples of the synchronicity that's been taking place in my life with time and time transference, reality, timeline jumping, it's incredible. It's quantum, is what it is. It's Aumbonda. Namaste, namaskaram.